My name is Katie DiMarino, and I am a 7th grade language arts teacher, and this is an overview of my 7-week thematic unit centered on the novel A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. It is a science fiction book, so while the unit focuses on science fiction, it does provide cross-curricular connections to math, social studies, and most extensively to science because it is a very science-oriented book. The main page, the unit overview and purpose, primarily highlights some of these cross-curricular connections to the different content areas, as well as provides a picture of the author and a link to her story there. By clicking on the lesson plans link to the left, you come to a very detailed overview of the 7-week unit plan. Each week is listed under a synopsis category and then also broken down by day, along with links to the different curriculum materials. The unit will begin with an introduction to science fiction, where students will be reading a poem called The Jumblies by Edward Lear. Clicking on the link to the poem, The Jumblies, students will come to a YouTube video where they will actually watch the recorded version of the poem being read aloud. And then returning to my page, students will then view a Prezi about Edward Lear and the creation of the Limerick poem. So we can click here on this Prezi word. And students are able to view the Prezi by moving through the slides. This Prezi is a sample that provides example of limericks for two purposes, because they will then be writing their own limerick, and it will also prepare them to create their own Prezi later in the unit. In the introductory lesson, students will eventually create their own limerick by using the template here, and then we'll move from there to kind of guess as to what genre we're really going to be studying. Hopefully they'll understand, since the poem is kind of off the wall and light-hearted, that it is going to be science fiction. And together we'll break apart the definition of science fiction using readwrite.com. After we have reviewed the definition of science fiction, we will use worditout.com, and we will use that to create a class working definition of science fiction by pulling out the key terms. You can find an example of it by clicking on the link that I have here. This is an example of worditout.com and kind of how it can create this word web or word cloud as it's called, pulling out the key terms from the science fiction definition. This is all in preparation again for students to use the word cloud later in a blog entry on their own. After that introductory day is complete, the rest of that first week will be spent acquainting students with the novel and some background knowledge. They will read Meet Madeleine L'Engle, and they will complete a set of outline notes. They'll read introducing the novel and create a poster activity. They'll read another article here, and then all of these documents are attached right here in the website for anyone to access at the drop of a hat. Lastly, on day 5, students will be prepared to use collaborizeclassroom.com. Students will be posting to the discussion forum throughout reading the novel, and so on this day 5, we're going to set up an account, and then students will participate in some sample maintaining a safe space online and building community online in order to familiarize themselves with the technology to use it on their own in the future. Week 2, we are finally into the novel, and the students will begin reading, listening, reading with partners, delving into the novel itself, and they will also do their first post on Collaborized Classroom. So I will show you an example of a topic that they would complete here. Here's my Collaborized Classroom, and here is the icebreaker and the building a safe community, the two introductory posts from the previous lesson. Then their first homework post will be this topic 1, And for each posting activity, I won't go through all of them, but for each of them I have 4 in here, students will be required to answer a variety of questions. This one actually requires them to go back to Word It Out and make a word cloud about one of the main characters, and then to kind of post it in here so that they can view each other's and comment on at least 2 classmates. So it's not a ton of writing here as much as it is thought going into the brainstorming and then the reflecting on each other's work. Day 4 requires a science connection. In the novel, they do talk about time travel or tessering quite a bit. So what we will be doing is watching this short little fun video clip on Einstein's theory of relativity, and then students will complete a topic wheel, just jotting down the main ideas from that video. Day 5, we're going to pull up the poll, and they will use polls everywhere and utilize their personal cell phone devices to answer the question, do you believe you're more alike or unlike Meg Murray, and why? Then their answers will filter up onto the smartboard in a cluster format for us to discuss and get class started that way. Week 3, we're moving right through the novel. We're continuing to read. They're to chapter 5 of the novel now. On Friday of the previous week, we would have taken a quiz, which is located here. Wrinkle in Time quiz, chapters 1 through 4. This is a Google form that students would complete, and they will do this at the end of every 4 chapters. So they'll take a total of 3 quizzes. That's just a short 5-question multiple choice format. Moving on into week 3, as I said, moving through the novel, students will do another post, topic 3 this time, and what they will do is actually research a historical figure this time using the Ultimate Research Assistant. So by clicking on this link, students will get to research historical figure, and then they're going to actually do a creative writing assignment as if they're that figure, post it to the discussion forum and Collaborate Classroom, and discuss again that way. And then we continue reading, we do another poll, continue reading, and just kind of continue with the discussion and reading and pulling in cross-curricular content resources that way. Since A Wrinkle in Time does focus on a dystopia, we will be talking about other works of literature that use dystopias and utopian societies. And students will be creating their own society using Prezi.com. Students will follow the project rubric, which is attached here, and it's very clearly laid out for them what the project must include, and comment section at the bottom for the teacher to leave comments. Here's an example, Prezi, an example of the completed project that a student would have created. And so when you come into here, you can see that their utopia was called Perfectopia, and they had a flag, and then they lay out their laws, the government, education, family, so on and so forth. My students would be completing a Prezi to look very similar to this one. Week 4, continuing on with the reading and the discussion posts, and here's the second Google quiz that the students would be required to take. Students will log in and have access to the second Google quiz. Moving right along, the last cross-curricular connection during this week will be students building a 4-dimensional hypercube out of pipe cleaners. It's a math connection having to do with the different dimensions discussed within the novel. Week 5 will incorporate students finishing up reading the novel, taking their last Google quiz utilizing this form here for chapters 9 through 12. And finally, students will complete a review game utilizing a smartboard, which the link is provided down here. And then on the day 5, complete their unit test for Wrinkle in Time, which is a multiple choice format, along with matching, and lastly, some short answer questions. With the novel all finished, the last 2 weeks of the unit will focus on a research project. Students will select a scientific phenomenon, many sciencey type topics that may or may not have been proven or may not be true or mentioned throughout the novel. So students will have a pretty extensive list, or they may choose their own, some from the novel, mostly from other sources, and they will research this topic using the Ultimate Research Assistant, and eventually they will complete a template found here. The Scientific Phenomenon Movie Maker project has the document that links them to their template to map out their research, cite their sources. That's what they'll be working on this first week, and then towards day 5 of that first week they will begin mapping out their spoken words for their movie maker. In the second week they will gather pictures to go with their spoken words, do the animation of the title and the credit slide, and really put their final movie together, eventually being evaluated by the movie maker grading rubric, which is found here. That's a pretty good overview of the lesson plans. Now the unit assessments that will be utilized throughout the unit. We discussed the discussion posts and reading quizzes, as well as the Prezi project, and then the outlines and worksheets from that first week. Those are all forms of formative assessment. Whereas the unit test and the movie maker project, those are the big ones. Those are the summative assessments. And I've posted here those tests and rubrics one more time. I believe I've touched on all of these, but just one more time, the technologies being used in this unit are Worded Out, Collaborized Classroom, Polls Everywhere, Google Forms, Ultimate Research Assistant, Prezi, Windows Movie Maker, and YouTube. And again, the links here provide you with each of those sections. Lastly are the unit standards. We have several common core standards that we're linking to here, from reading of literature as well as writing. And that's assessed in the discussion posts, class discussion, Prezi, unit quizzes, and tests. And then some more writing standards from the movie maker and the video that tie back to the writing skills and research oriented. Our NETS standards, we're working on creativity and innovation with that Prezi. Collaborized Classroom, Movie Maker, and the polls are encouraging students to communicate, collaborate, and to be responsible when they are posting on the web. Lastly, the research standard and information sharing, etc., is covered through the Movie Maker project. As a teacher, I'm hoping to provide digital age learning experiences and assessments. For the P21 framework, the communication skills again are being hit, as well as students' ability to think creatively through that Prezi. And the movie maker is pretty self-paced, so that's really requiring them a sense of productivity and accountability on their own. That is my 7-week unit in a nutshell. So if you would be willing to fill out my peer review survey at the end here in this last link, I would be greatly appreciative of any feedback that you do have. Thank you for listening.